It wasn't as linear as you've just described it. I really am an entrepreneur because I have been living my life off of this guy's quote that I heard was that opportunities of a lifetime have to be seized in the lifetime of the opportunity.
Today, my guest is Kimberly Moore. Kimberly is the CEO and founder of GoTogether. Hi, Kimberly. It's
Good
lovely to
morning.
have you here.
Hi. Good.
Um, I've been looking forward to having this episode with you. Can you please tell everyone more about yourself and what GoTogether does?
Sure. Yes. So Go Together is solving a problem that many parents have today, and that is how do I get my kid to school? Especially if they're making choices to go to private school or public charters where bus service isn't necessarily offered. And so we're closing that gap that can happen for parents when they're trying to navigate transportation. So our platform is a K-12 SaaS mobility platform. It allows parents to organize carpooling, kids walking, biking, and some cities taking public transit together. And we do that through school districts and schools. So it's a vetted platforms to ensure the safety of the student. And we're based in Washington, D.C., although we have customers around the country.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I saw that the organization is already in 27 states.
Yes, 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 we are. It's very interesting that you can be an early stage startup and have that kind of customer reach, but that's the beauty of software. And my background, which I did mention earlier, is I've got a 14-year career in federal sales, having launched Verizon Wireless's federal practice. And I understand really well what it means to interact with governments. And so being able to remove the barriers to a yes has been something that we've been really proud of. And so we're around the country serving districts, schools, private schools, public schools, independent schools, school choice options, everything.
That's fantastic. I'll come back to the government piece in a little bit.
Yes, yes.
Super interesting. So you've identified a problem that I think a lot of people have realized that sometimes, yeah, it's tough to get to school. It's tough to get their kids to school. But I don't think anybody has really thought about solving that, or at least not anyone that I'm aware of until I came across you and GoTogether. So
Yeah.
can you explain like what that moment was like when you realized there is a gap, I think I have a solution, and I think I'm going to pursue solving this?
Yeah, so I'll approach this in a little bit of a different way. It wasn't as linear as you've just described it. I really am an entrepreneur because I have been living my life off of this guy's quote that I heard was that opportunities of a lifetime have to be seized in the lifetime of the opportunity. And so I used to produce large events and I was in between gigs, and this opportunity came up in a conversation with my sister was a single mom, daughter in private school, and single moms in general make it happen. And so we were standing in her kitchen, and she had a client meeting in Baltimore. We're in DC, and she's like, "I can't do it. I can't pick up my daughter today. Can you help?" I was like, "Absolutely." And she also knew that I was looking for a little side hustle while I was waiting to close my next deal. And she looked at me and said, "This is something that you can do." There are parents every day who are struggling to get from, she was thinking hyper local here in DC, to get from work in DC to the suburbs to only take their child home or to practice. And it's a huge problem. So I thought, that's interesting. So I did a little research to understand what that looked like and found out in the county that she lived in that there were 19 private schools that kids would go to outside of the county every single day, an hour commute easily. And so I thought Uber had just entered the market and it reminded me of Uber. And I thought I I could do this, on the bookends of the day, no problem. So it kind of started as a side hustle. But then I entered into a conversation with Charles King, who's now my co founder. And he said, Kimberly, I think that's a problem that you can solve. I told him that I had put together this website and offered it to parents, and it was gaining some traction. And before I knew what traction meant, and I just said, well, this could be an opportunity of a lifetime. I'm going to go for it until it's not. And here we are 8 years later.
Wow, that's a wonderful story, and you really are solving a very important problem.
Yes, yes, yes.
When you thought about where to launch, where to start, so you'd already kind of been putting the business into practice locally. Did you expand further in DC, or when you were considering growth into other areas, what did that look like? Where did you think to start, or where did you think to go next?
Yeah, so interesting. We launched our company with an acquisition, actually. And so, an amazing conversation with an amazing founder who I was really looking to license her software, and she was looking to sell her company. And she said, I love what you're doing. I want to sell my company. Would you like to buy it? And I heard that guy's talk. Opportunities of a lifetime must be seized in a lifetime of the opportunity. And not knowing really what all that meant, I just decided I'm going to try to figure it out. And that's what happened. So we did the acquisition in 90 days. And with that came, we had 15 schools on our platform, and they were all over the country. So we immediately were all over the country and actually nowhere in DC or the DC suburbs. So California, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, everywhere. So from there, though, once we completed the acquisition, I did start sharing our platform with schools. And as a matter of fact, my niece's private school was our first customer here in DC.
Wow.
Yeah. And they are still a customer.
Wow, that's even cooler.
Yeah, yeah. So we have reached out to many different associations and schools here in this area, but for some crazy reason, it's kind of like, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but this is the only analogy that I have, is it's kind of like Jesus. What good can come from Nazareth? He was not recognized in his hometown at all. I feel like that's us. We have presence. People know about us. There is a district actually that we are in some conversations with right now. So we're known, particularly by the mayor and so forth. And we've done a pilot with DC Public Schools, helped them get to what their ultimate solution was going to be, which was fine for us. And so we're good. We're good. We just want to solve problems where they are. So excited to do that across the country.
Amazing. Looking back at those first few customers you got, or maybe those 15, and then growing from there, like into the next phase of customers, what were those conversations like? What was that sales process like? Do you think that the value that GoTogether brings was super obvious, or did you have to kind of go through a storytelling exercise and craft the right story for each prospect or customer?
Yeah, no, actually, they understood the pain point greater than I did, essentially, and the value was immediate for them. Um, for there are many different reasons why it makes sense. One of the biggest ones is that our communities that we live in aren't necessarily communities that we participate in. So oftentimes you can have families who are taking their kids to the exact same school and don't even know it. And so, one of the greatest values that schools saw was our platform that would allow them to, once they approve those parents, allow them to be able to connect with people instantly and remove that barrier of going through a listserv or looking at a directory or having the staff do the matching. And so those pain points were huge and it was immediate to customers. So it wasn't really a huge sales process. I think because we started 8 years ago, that it was one of those things that the broad K-12 sector really didn't know was a possibility. Mostly what people understood for getting kids to and from school was the bus, but the numbers say something different. Only about 40% of students actually ride a school bus, and almost 60% actually are taken to school by their parents or a caregiver. So it really has been something that has become an education to more traditional schools, but to private schools and public charters who don't offer transportation, it was a pretty clear choice.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And you bring up something interesting there, educating people about what you're doing. What does that look like? What did that look like then? And what does it look like now as you want to continue to get the word out?
Yeah. So what it looked like then, because it was a discovery process for us too, right? So we just acquired this platform. We kind of understood what the need that we were solving a problem for, but then every really understanding what the different use cases were became really important. Let's dive into what that is. And so initially, it was more of a responsive, situation where they said, oh, we really need to have this because we have construction happening on our campus and we have to redirect parents and it's causing a traffic jam. So we want to reduce the traffic coming onto campus from a certain direction. So back then, it was really us more being responsive to what the need is. Today, we really lead with trying to understand better why they're even looking for a solution, but also more about what their community is all about. How do parents do life today in their community and why now? And so because we don't have to do tons of storytelling, what we do is help them understand that while we're providing this solution, we see this as a shared success opportunity for both of us. And it's really not a build it and they will come. We discovered that over time. And that's really important for schools and districts to know.
So when you're thinking about new customer acquisition and you're planning your marketing, are you marketing to parents? Are you marketing to school district leaders?
Yeah, we made a decision really early on that we wanted to partner with school districts and with schools for a couple of reasons. One is that our solution serves the entire school community. There's consistency and trust that's built with the school or the district more than it is with us, honestly. And so we wanted to rely on that relationship. We believe that trust is the currency that we are really exchanging, and that we want to have parents believe and know that this is part of the DNA of the school.
Yeah. Have you found that your experience working in the government sector was easily adapted into trying to sell into school districts?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's considerably easier, by the way, much easier. But it's one where if you are not familiar with it, the sales cycle could be discouraging because it can take, in private schools and public charters, the decision making process is fairly short. But for districts, it's going to be longer, especially because a good portion of the start of the conversation is education and them wrestling with, okay, well, we have all these buses, but there's a national school bus driver shortage that's making it very difficult for districts to live up to their promise to provide service consistently, daily, for kids to and from school. And so we spend a lot of time educating with districts and also building in the things that they need in order to mitigate any risks that they feel that they may have.
When you're doing your marketing, reaching out to school districts, what channels or methods have you found to be the most successful?
Yeah, like many SaaS companies, we see a fair amount of traffic inbound. We also participate in conferences, not so much on the tabling or getting a booth. We haven't really found like that's an effective use of the investment, but becoming a part of the community so that we're showing up every year at those specific events and building relationships. When I was at Verizon, I believe that my success came from the relationships that I built with our customers. And so I've focused on that. Our team focuses on that. We are very clear that without that relationship, we really will not have customers for a long time. So retention is really important. For different channels, the obvious inbound, we do some outbound as well, but we're pretty selective on the outbound because there's so much noise. District administrators, principals are just bombarded by inbound to them. And so when we do it, it's very targeted and it's very personalized. And so that has been our success, and we've done very well at that.
That's amazing. Is email, LinkedIn part of that
Well,
strategy?
yep. All the tools that people use, we use those. We know where our customers are reading, we know where they're convening, and we've just built relationships around the ecosystem so that even if it's not inbound, outbound, the people who they're talking to, we're talking to as well.
That's great. That's great. And you mentioned something earlier about retention. Retention
Hmm.
is key for every business. It's easier to retain a customer and keep them happy than to acquire a new one.
Yeah.
But as businesses scale, it becomes harder for the C-level, especially CEOs, to stay close to customers.
Yeah.
So how do you try to balance that? Like, and you also mentioned earlier, maintaining the relationship is
Yeah.
important. So kind of walk me through what you do and what you would recommend for, other
It's
CEOs
hard.
and founders.
It is
Yeah,
absolutely hard. And I think, though, we're still at a place where I have some exposure to the customer throughout the life cycle. Maybe not necessarily in the beginning, but I'll come in at a quarterly check in or be a part of a video that's telling a little bit about what we're doing, updates on our platform. We do surveys with customers, and I do individual follow up with leaders at schools. So I try to be out there. I mean, that's one of the things, even at Verizon, we started with a small team of, gosh, maybe 12 account managers and created a distributed sales network across the country. And with that, there's a loss that you can experience in terms of the messaging and authenticity of what you're doing. And so, one of the first things that I did with our teams as we launched them in different states, parts of the company, is really not turning over the keys to the kingdom until they had a really deep understanding of how important it is to maintain those customer relationships and to tie compensation to that as well. So I feel like my compensation is definitely tied to it. So I make sure that our team understands that as much as it's great to get a customer, it's even more important for us to keep the customer.
certainly, definitely. One idea I just had, or one thing that just kind of came to me. So we've talked a lot about helping children get to school and filling the gaps there. But I think if anyone's listening to this, they might think, well, there are a lot of other people that need transport, and some of these like closed communities that we've kind of touched on, but they might be more in the private sector. Is
Hmm.
there any exploration or any desire to maybe branch out and look at some of those other markets?
So very tempting, right? We get that question often. And where I've landed, and one of my mentors and now advisor really shared with me that, Kimberly, you've got to be just dialed in to one segment really, really well before you move on to another segment. So there are many, many different use cases that we could potentially provide our platform. Our adjacent opportunities are the ones that we're focused on the most. We often tell even investors who we're in conversation with who see an opportunity, say to them, we're not willing to explore that just because this is where we have our bread and butter, and the pivot to that sector will be a pretty big lift from a technology perspective because our platform is built for families. It's built for parents and kids and administrators. It's not really built for individual adults.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I see so often that founders and CEOs suffer from shiny object syndrome. And
Yes,
it's tough. There's a lot out there and there's a lot of things you think, well, I could use this in the business or I could maybe shift here because everyone wants to grow at the end of the day. Everyone wants customers
absolutely.
and they want to do it as quick as possible. And sometimes all these little moves end up slowing you down.
Absolutely. We call it mission creep. right? And so you just creep further away from your mission. And I'm pretty zeroed into it, and not to be, looking at the shiny object, because I know that, like you said, it can really take you away from your core business and really cause you to slow down in your core business. And that could take a long time to build that business. We just had an inbound opportunity from Australia, which seemed like it could be very interesting, especially because they are English speaking. I made the decision that while it would be interesting, it really would be very time consuming, because I look at what's required for us to do business there, and the requirements are pretty steep. So even before you actually sell this one customer, which would have been a good opportunity, the work to get there was going to be too much. So we'll wait till we're a little bit further. We have had many, many inbound requests for our platform in India, Italy, London, Spain, Chile. I mean, all over the world.
I'm sure it's really cool to see the interest from so many different places.
Yes.
But kudos to you for having the foresight and being able to say, not right now, let's focus on the core mission here
Hmm.
and let's push forward here, because if you can make it and be successful here, then you can branch out and be successful everywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Two more questions.
Sure.
So, because this is a sort of AI podcast,
Hmm.
AI is one of the themes of the closing code. How have you incorporated AI into the business, either into the product or into some of your marketing or both?
Yeah, so we are really getting our arms around AI. Obviously, we use it in our marketing to help tighten up our messaging. We use it in designing our flow for different business operations. We're also looking at it to optimize how we do development, software development, help us be able to respond quicker to larger opportunities where we have to synthesize a lot of data in order to be responsive in a short period of time. But we are still understanding where its power comes from. As a matter of fact, we'll be working with an AI expert who is going to help us look at the best places to infuse it in our product. We do have it in our product now. It allows us to really do more intelligent matching with parents. And that way, not only can they see in seconds who lives nearby them and connect with them, we actually tell them, here are the best choices for you based on their profile. And that's really working very well. We're taking it another level where they're going to really get those matches automatically instead of them searching, and really make it easier. The one thing about what AI is doing from the user experience is setting the bar really high. Parents are using technology outside, obviously, of our technology, and the level of adoption of AI across apps that they use sets the foundation and the expectation of how they will interact with any other software. And so we are very aware of that and really investing this summer in infusing more AI. We've got a couple of new products coming out, and super excited about how AI is going to really make the customer have to get from point A to point B much, much faster, and also deliver insights to us about the business and our customers' usage at all levels. And so that's super exciting.
That's awesome. And you kind of actually just set up my final question for you, which is what's next for GoTogether in the next 6 to 12 months? What are you going to be
Yeah.
focused on besides the AI integration that you mentioned?
Yeah, obviously, growth is our focus, and navigating what's happening in the U.S. Department of Education and the changes that are happening there, and seeing what our opportunities are. And we see several, actually, and we're positioning to take advantage of those opportunities. So, growth is our absolute focus right now. AI adoption is really important and to be really efficient in how we do it. Again, that's another thing that can be, it's the buzzword for everybody right now. And sometimes people say they have AI and they really don't have AI. We really want to invest in AI in ways that are going to make our customers happier and to make our business more efficient. And I think lastly, what we are, and this is a personal interest of mine, probably coming from my federal background, is I'm really very interested into becoming more of a voice in what's happening in policy around transportation. It's a broken system and it's a huge investment of dollars that districts make every single year. $29 billion are spent to get kids to and from school. And with 60% of parents driving their kids to school, that means that that budget could probably be used more efficiently. But even more than that, to open up the mindset of districts and schools around the country through legislation. And so we have relationships with organizations that have those conversations, and we just make sure we're part of it. That's something that interests me.
I think that's going to be a very powerful
Yeah.
move and direction and
Yeah.
great focus area.
I want to just add one other thing. Throughout my life, I've been very invested in young people really becoming who they were meant to be. And I had a nonprofit several years ago that served kids in juvenile detention. And, everybody thinks about kids who are in those settings as being just wayward or something's wrong with them. But really, they just are missing a perspective. And so one of the things that we would do is to help them understand what's possible for them. And we've seen amazing success stories come out of that. And so that's never left me. I actually have the wonderful opportunity of serving as the chair for DC Public Schools Industry Advisory Board for Technology. And so I want to ensure that the next generation of students, at least in my community, are aware of what the opportunities are in technology. So that's another personal place that I will invest time and absolutely love it to ensure that they really understand that technology isn't just coding. It's selling the technology, it's porting the technology, is designing the product of the technology. And that's super important to me. So AI is the next thing, helping them understand where they fit. And because they pick up things so quickly, they're right for those kinds of jobs. So we're doing an event in a couple of weeks to help them understand how to be responsible with AI. But that's just something personally that I'll be investing in over the next 6 months.
Wow. Kimberly, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. If
Well,
anyone wants to reach out
yeah.
and reach out to you or learn more, how can they find you?
Yeah, so I primarily am on Twitter, and you can reach me at KY Moore and the number one, and LinkedIn. And there are lots of Kimberly Moores out there, so I'm Kimberly Y Moore, and you can reach me there. We have a newsletter we just launched to really talk about the changes in the administration and how they affect transportation. So you can subscribe to our newsletter as well.
Thank you again. Thank you for everything that you do. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.